Hey, peace and wellness family. I hope that y'all are well and happy and whole and all that good stuff. I am the Queen Poe, and the intention for this video is for us to discuss our upcoming full moon in Aries that we have peaking on October 6th at 11:48 p.m. Eastern Time. The shadow period for this full moon starts today and will last until October 9th. So during this live, we are going to discuss the meaning of this planetary alignment, how it may impact our energy, and identify some practices that we can implement to utilize all of this full moon in Aries energy. Now, I have to acknowledge the fact that this full moon in Aries officially marks the start of harvest season. It's known as the hunter's moon or the harvest moon. It is seen as the time that was assigned for farmers to go out and start harvesting their crops, right? So we talked about how the last full moon was the corn harvest moon because based on the ability to harvest the corn early, that was their signal that there would be a great harvest for the rest of their crops. And this is the time where they would go check to see what that harvest is looking like and was the signal correct, right? So this is the official start of harvest season. So happy harvest season. Also happy Hoodoo Heritage Month to everybody who honors hoodoo, who practices hoodoo, who grew up hoodoo, who's just learning about hoodoo, who's an elder in hoodoo, who's a beginner in hoodoo. Happy Hoodoo Heritage Month for all hoodoo people, hoodoo practitioners. I hope that you thoroughly enjoy and grow in your practice during this Hoodoo Heritage Month season. Now, we have to also acknowledge that with this full moon, it is a super moon, meaning that this full moon will be at its closest proximity to Earth during its orbit, during the peak of the moon. So while the moon is peaking in Aries, when it tilts towards the Earth during its orbit, it will be in the closest proximity as it will ever be during this specific orbit. Now, what this does is it intensifies the energy of the moon. The moon will appear larger in the sky, but also all of the energy aligned with this full moon will be elevated and intensified, right? So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this full moon, but I'm going to tell y'all, the last few moon cycles, we have had to have some really layered energy, and it's been like a lot of like notes and conjunctions and squares and trines and all of that. The energy of this planetary alignment is actually quite simple, right? It's not as complex as it has been in the past. So we don't have as much to focus on and worry about, or really, there's never anything to worry about, but we won't have too many challenges. However, the energy that we will be experiencing will be intense. So we will get into all of that. Of course, I have to shout out the wellness community. Shout out to the tribe, butterflies in the sky. Y'all see them in the chat. Okay. Shout out to y'all for always showing love and always showing up and supporting. Baby, we had us a good conversation. So this month in the wellness community, every month, we've been setting intentions, right, for the month. So this month, of course, we are aligning with the intention of honoring Hoodoo Heritage Month. So our book of the month that the community voted on and chose is The Conjuring of America by Lindsay Stewart, which is heavily centered in hoodoo practice. And so far, it is a great book. We are really enjoying it. Once a week, every week, we are having what I call hoodoo conversations, where essentially I teach a short class, about an hour, on a specific topic in hoodoo. And we as a community have a conversation about the topic after I give the short lesson. Baby, last night's conversation lasted for 4 hours. It lasted for 4 hours, and it was such a good conversation. The topic that we talked about was essentially Mammy, Sapphire, Jezebel, and her homegirls, right? Shout out to Dr. Caroline West, who has a great scholarly article about the different stereotypes and tropes regarding Black women, but specifically focusing on the Mammy. And the topic was, what about Mammy, the mammification of the Black woman? as we read our book of the month, it opens up by acknowledging how Mammy was the foundation of the conjuring of America, right? How a lot of things that America is known for, simple remedies like Vicks Vapor Rub, comes from a Mammy, right? The founders, the inventors, the ones who were the first to run to the patent, they actually learned these salves and these tinctures and these medicine and these roots from their mammies who raised them. So I thought it was important for us to have a very layered conversation about mammies specifically, but also expanded to the other stereotypes, caricatures, and tropes that Black women are boxed into, and how society as a whole has benefited from those stereotypes and those tropes. And really, we had a conversation about, do we want to reclaim these stereotypes of the mammy, the sapphire, the Jezebel? Or do we want to release the energy of that, right? And we had the ability to bring in the stereotypes about Black men as well. We talked about the buck, the brute, etc. It was a really good conversation, and that's why it lasted for 4 hours. So shout out to the tribe, because baby, we had a time last night. We had a time last night. I greatly enjoyed y'all. But without further ado, oh, of course, and if you want to join the wellness community, you can look down below at the scroll below, or we now have the ability to add these QR codes at the top of the screen. So hopefully y'all can see that, and you can just scan that. It'll take you straight to the wellness community, and you can join for $5 a month, and you will get all of the benefits for $5 a month. You'll be able to join the book club listening sessions and the hoodoo conversations and all of our other conversations and family meetings. We have a group chat. We have all kind of things going on. Okay. We're a very active community. Very active. Okay. We be meeting. That's the one thing we gonna do. If we don't do nothing else, we gonna have a meeting. Huh? If we don't do nothing else, we gonna be chatting and talking and getting together about something. Okay. So if you want to join a community that is very affordable, very reasonably priced, like I said, it's $5 a month, where you know that you will be fed, aligned with the tribe, but make sure that you are in alignment with the vibe. Okay? Follow your spirit. Don't rush. I ain't rushing you. I want you to follow your spirit, huh? Because we got a certain vibe over here. Follow your spirit. Okay, now let's get into this full moon in Aries, y'all. When I say, let me be clear about this, huh? Let me be clear about this. Usually I say I ain't gonna be before y'all long. I really don't think I'm gonna be before y'all long, because when I say this planetary alignment I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna over romanticize it and make it seem like, oh, this is a beautiful, because it's the harvest moon, right? So I'm not gonna front. I was hoping that we was gonna get some good, juicy harvest energy with this full moon. And it's that, but there's a little bit of a challenge, okay? But nothing too complex. So I really don't think that I should be before y'all long, for real, okay? Give me 40 minutes. Maybe. If I go over, charge it to the chat, not to my heart. Blame the community. Don't blame me. Okay, now let's get into it. So when we are talking about full moons, first off, I have to acknowledge that the full moon is all about reflecting, revealing, and releasing. It offers us the opportunity to reflect on our past, reflect on our energy, really assess where we are in life. It offers us the opportunity to receive revelations about things that we need to do to progress and move forward, receive revelations about shadow work that we may need to do, and release anything that is not in alignment for our wellness or with our wellness, right? So that's the beauty of the full moon. Also acknowledging that the full moon is aligned with the Orisha Yemoja, who is the divine mother of the Orishas, right? The full moon is all about that divine feminine energy. We're talking about the energy of intuition, of nurturing and creativity, right? That's that sacral chakra energy. So anytime we have a full moon, we naturally have an elevation in our divine feminine. Every being will experience that. One of the interesting little fun facts I always like to throw out, if you ask nurses and doctors and EMTs and police officers about full moons, there's usually like a code that they all talk about how, listen, during a full moon, the energy is high, right? During the full moon, people are making impulsive and rash emotional decisions, which results in them being on call and being in high demand. So the doctors and the nurses and the emergency rooms, the police officers, the EMTs are like, it's a full moon, we work in the night, right? Also, it's important to note that that's where the term lunatic came from. If you research the term lunatic was known ancient in ancient times for the fact that a lot of people during the full moon in alignment with the lunar energy, people would lose their mind, right? People would make very irrational emotional decisions, become a bit psychotic, right? So the term lunatic was coined from that. But it really just speaks to the power of the moon and the full moon specifically, because we have to keep in mind that the full moon naturally pulls at the tides, it elevates the tides. Anytime we have a full moon, we usually have what's known as high tide, literally speaking of the water. We have to keep in mind that we as physical beings are more than 70% water. So our tides, our energy is naturally elevated. And this is not always a bad thing, right? I don't want y'all to think like, oh my God, does this mean I'm going to go crazy? Does this mean I'm going to be wild? No, every single full moon, you naturally will feel an intensity, an increase in your emotions, but also an increase in your creativity, an increase in your intuition, an increase in your nurturing, your desire to be in community and be in relationship and really nurture self. So you may find yourself having the desire to practice a lot of self-care and also the desire to nurture your relationships. Now, the interesting thing is, depending on the sign that the moon is peaking in, or the celestial body, the constellation that the moon is in alignment with, that determines how that energy shows up. That determines how those emotions show up and where those emotions show up. Well, baby, this full moon, which again is a super moon, meaning that the energy will be even more intense, is peaking in Aries. Now, Aries is our cardinal fire sign. Cardinal, the leader, the starter, the beginning, the alpha. Fire sign, fire bringing that passion, that impulsivity, but also that purification, ruled by Mars. Mars is our planet of action and movement, right? So, with this full moon peaking in Aries, you can expect a lot of increase in those fiery, impulsive emotions. Now, something that we have to be mindful of is not acting, because that Mars of that Aries, that Mars ruling that Aries, will often pull at our desire to get up and move, right? You may also find that you have spurts of increased energy. You have the desire to do things. So this is where it becomes a balance, and that balance is going to come up later on. This is where it becomes a balance of like the yin and the yang, the high and the low, the divine feminine, divine masculine, the opposing sides, right? Because normally during full moons, people have a tendency to feel very fatigued, very sleepy, very tired normally. However, when we have a full moon peaking in Aries, that Aries energy ain't gonna let you go lay down. That Aries energy is going to pop up somewhere in your life where you are going to want to get up and take action and move and get up, get out and get something, right? So you may find yourself having the desire to respond to your emotions. Again, it's an increase in emotions, but the thing that you need to be mindful of is not responding to your emotions, right? Not allowing your emotions to guide your actions. But how can you use this Aries impulsivity energy for your wellness and in alignment with your wellness, right? Let me explain. Chiron, which is the wounded healer, which is the asteroid that calls us to go within and do our shadow work, is conjunct with our full moon in Aries. How you can utilize this Aries energy and those increase of emotions is to take some time and reflect on the roots of those emotions. And the way that you can tap into that Aries impulsivity in action is to be actionable and take action to do your shadow work and do your healing work. That is how you can use that energy for your wellness. So, what I would do is if I notice that I have a very strong emotion coming up and my flesh, my physical may be telling me to do something, to respond to this emotion, to have the argument, to engage in the fight, to engage in the discord, right? But my spirit self is saying, hey, 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 let's not give that any energy. Let's turn this energy within. Let's take a moment to reflect. This is that full moon. Reflect, reveal, release. Let's take a moment to reflect. What is the root of this emotion? Why are you so triggered? What story is this emotion telling you? And that is where you want to take action to do your healing work and do your shadow work. So, this Chiron conjunction with our full moon in Aries is offering us the opportunity to really get to a next level of shadow work if we are mindful of our emotions and we practice self control, impulsivity control specifically. Okay. Now, I also want to talk about Aries, which Aries, we talked about this before. I did a whole video, a separate video about Aries retrograde on my socials. I think I also posted it on YouTube. I have to acknowledge this because it is also in Aries with our full moon and with Chiron. Now, the thing about Aries retrograde being in conjunction with the full moon, again, keep in mind what I said about the full moon elevating the tides. Aries is all about the weather. Aries is all about battles and war. So, something that we need to be mindful of with that Aries energy, with the full moon, an increase of emotions, an increase of energy. Remember, an increase in the elevation of the tide, right? What we have to is sunflower said, is it Aries or Aries? It's interesting because this is why I usually like to pronounce it Aries. I usually like to pronounce it Aries. Traditionally, it's pronounced Aries, but I like to pronounce it Aries because anytime we say Aries, people think Aries like the sign, right? Thank you so much for the love offering, Amina. I appreciate it. And may it be abundantly returned unto you. Thank you for the cash app, Sister Queen. But that's why I usually pronounce it a little differently, right? But I'm talking about Aries, right? So it is, again, it is all about the weather. It is all about war and battle. Because of that conjunction with the full moon, the elevation of the tide, I'm going to tell y'all something that we all need to be mindful of is the weather, specifically dealing with the water, dealing with flooding, dealing with anything like that. I'm talking about random tsunamis, random weather events, hurricanes, things like that, specifically dealing with water. But also because of that Aries, the sign energy, be mindful of fires. Sudden fires spreading very quickly because of the wind, wild winds, right? So, and we have to remember this is the year of Oya, right? And Oya is all about that as well, all about those sudden transitions, all about the winds and hurricanes, right? Tornadoes. So we have to keep that in mind. Now, I want y'all to be mindful of that during this time. So, what I heavily advise is, especially if you are traveling anywhere where this is hurricane season, just be mindful. Make sure that you check the weather. Make sure that you are observing and taking any precautions. Also, pay close attention to like candles in your home. Make sure that your stove is off and secure. Just really pay attention to those types of things, okay? Be as safe as you possibly can at all times, right? Especially during this entire shadow period. Now, another thing that we need to be mindful of with that Aries conjunction in Aries with the full moon, as well as with Chiron, is that the internal battles, that war and that battle aspect. Keep in mind that Chiron is the wounded healer, right? So when we're talking about Chiron being the wounded healer, and we're talking about this other planetary aspect, this other asteroid being in conjunction with Chiron, the wounded healer, and the full moon, don't be mindful of the internal battles that you are having within, okay? Literally internally. Be mindful of not creating a mental war with yourself, right? And a lot of times, especially when we have a super moon and the emotions are intense, a lot of times the mental war occurs when the emotions is taking over our mind and we are allowing ourselves to become too fixated in these emotions and we get stuck. Right. So, this is when you need to find your balance. And this is when we're going to move directly to our opposition, because our sun, which is our connection between our highest divine self, also known as our Ori, and the highest divine source, our sun is opposing our full moon, Aries, and Chiron. Our sun will be in Libra. Libra is all about that divine balance. When we're talking about Libra, we're talking about cardinal air ruled by Venus, which is our planet of love and relationships and values and beauty and abundance, right? So oppositions challenge us to find balance between two worlds. So this is why balance will be a huge theme and somewhat of a challenge between our entire shadow period, starting from today until the 9th, right? A lot of us will be called to find balance between our flesh and our spirits. A lot of us will be called to find balance between being in community and being in solitude. A lot of us will be called to find balance between following our Ori and being elevated in spirit and remaining grounded in reality. And there will be quite a few ways that you can really do the work to make sure that you are aligning with this balance. Like I said, the first one I want to touch on and have to continue to expound upon is finding the balance between the flesh and the spirit, by making sure that you are not allowing your emotions to cause your mind to become stuck and fixated in trauma. And that's why that shadow work is going to be important. That's why it's going to be important for you to be self-aware. Awareness is key. Self-aware. And the moment that you feel a heavy emotion coming up, you need to take a pause and immediately start doing the work to reflect and get to the root of it, because that way you know that, okay, this is my healing work I need to do. This is the biggest message I want you all to understand from this aspect of the planetary alignment. Your emotions do not dictate your identity. And you cannot allow your emotions to inform your identity. Sometimes what happens is people get stuck in their emotions and they allow their emotions to become their identity. I'm going to give you an example. You ever hear somebody say, when I get mad, I black out, I see red. Why are you claiming that as an aspect of your identity? Why are you claiming this uncontrollable anger and rage to the point that you mentally black out and lose control of your spirit and your physical, and you're allowing these emotions to lead? You need to release that as a part of your identity. So that's the shadow work there. Why are you so attached to this anger? Why are you so attached to this rage that you are proud to make that a part of your identity? Don't allow your mind to get stuck there. Don't allow your mind to be led by your emotions. So you have to find the balance between the spirit, between your Ori, your highest divine self, and your physical reality experience, your physical environment. How can you find the balance between those two? And the best way to do that is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is easily achieved when you are doing your shadow work, which, like I said, is getting to the roots of that problem, getting to the root of what is even causing you or leading you to be so attached to this emotion of anger. Where does that come from? And oftentimes when you get to the root of it, it was a coping mechanism. That anger and that rage was something that you were able to tap into because it protected you during certain times of your life. How can you release that? What work do you need to do to release that? And I'm giving you the cheat code here. It's quite possible that what you need to release is the idea that you always need to be defensive and that you are your only protector, right? So That is just a glimpse or one example of what that shadow work could look like, right? So, going back to that opposition of the sun in Libra, and Libra calling us to do a lot of balance work, right? And understand our relationship with balance. I want to bring up relationships as well, because with that full moon elevating the emotions and us having that sun opposing in Libra, it's important to remember that Libra is ruled by Venus, which is all about relationships. A lot of these emotional triggers will likely come up from relationships, right? So we're not talking about the strangers on the street and having a random incident of road rage on the highway, right? Mercury right now is good. So you shouldn't have to worry too much about that stuff. We're talking about people who are in close proximity to you being able to trigger certain emotions within you that may be very intense. But again, it's up to you to go within and do that shadow work to take it to the next level. So within your relationships, this is where you really want to be mindful about not over responding or impulsively responding to your emotions. When you are having a conversation with your partner or with a family member or with a friend or with your children, and an emotion comes up and it's very strong and intense, that's your sign to take a pause, because you don't want to be impulsive and say the wrong thing that could turn a short moment of discord into a long-term issue, problem, right? So make sure that you, again, are practicing that emotional intelligence. And the key here is going to be about finding balance between being in that relationship and knowing when to be in solitude, finding balance between staying in the moment of that conversation and knowing when to walk away and go gather yourself. Okay, that's what that finding the balance is going to look like. You got to know when to say, okay, right now we're in community. Okay, there's a bit of a discord right here. Okay, discord meaning disagreement. We're having a bit of a disagreement right here. Okay, I'm feeling an emotion coming up. This emotion is intense. I feel like I want to respond in action. You know what? This is my cue. I got some work to do. Let me pause, go be in solitude, gather myself, identify my shadow work, decide when I'm ready, and you'll know when you're ready to return to the conversation when you are emotionally well and balanced and clear and can clearly communicate from a space of wellness with wellness centered intention to understand and resolve, right? So that's how you will know. So that's how the balance will show up in relationship, okay? Now, also have to talk about Jupiter squaring, right? And it's important to acknowledge that right now, with this planetary alignment, cardinal signs will be heavily affected, right? Because Jupiter is squaring our full moon, which is in Aries, a cardinal sign. It's squaring in Cancer, which is cardinal water, right? So we have cardinal air, Libra, cardinal water, Cancer, and cardinal fire. Can y'all hear me and see me? I don't know what happened. Can y'all hear and see me? Let me know in the chat. Okay, perfect. I don't know what happened. My whole screen just shut down. It said that there was an issue or an error. So I don't know what happened, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. So what I was saying was the cardinal energy, right? That's what I was talking about. So again, cardinal signs will be heavily affected because of all that cardinal air, fire, water. So all of my cardinal signs need to be super mindful. Okay, you said the card. Devin said the Cardinals took it. The Cardinals took over. Okay, but but y'all really need to be mindful and pay attention specifically to your cardinal sign placements, because that will be a cue for you of where this energy will show up for you specifically in your life, right? Now, moving forward with that square of Jupiter in Cancer, when we're talking about Cancer, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So, this square of Jupiter in Cancer with our full moon in Aries is where we will really feel a lot of intensity, like what emotions are going to come up, right? Now, with Cancer energy, Cancer, that cardinal water, right? Water is always flowing, the emotions are always moving and can be a bit erratic. Now, this is going to be the biggest thing. Jupiter is our planet of expansion and optimism. Squares usually bring us internal challenges, right? So these emotions, what emotions, and this is when we're getting more specific, right? Because we talked about an increase of emotions. We talked about how the emotions will be your opportunity to do healing work and shadow work. Then we talked about how a lot of that healing shadow work is going to come up through relationships. Now we're talking about specifically internally what specific emotions may be triggered from these relationships. This is where we're going to go to our square. So you see how we did that. Okay, you see the line. This is where we get specific. Jupiter is our planet of expansion and optimism. When we have that internal square, something I need y'all to be reminded of is that when times like this come up with Jupiter squaring a full moon, specifically in Aries, you may find yourself having a lot of moments of pessimism. You may find yourself struggling to be optimistic and bringing in that Libra, right? That Libra opposition, which is also a square for Jupiter, bringing in that Libra sun. What this looks like is right now and throughout this shadow period, you may find yourself struggling to find balance with identifying, and not even identifying, because you know how you want to grow. That's going to be easy for you. You know what you want, and it's harvest season. So you're really focusing on, like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. This is my vision. This is my goal. This is my vision board. This is my manifestation. I want this. I got all these desires. I know how I want to grow. You got to have balance between that and being grateful for the harvest that you have. And when you are struggling to find that balance, it may show up in the form of pessimism. And this is where the square comes in, right? Because that full moon, that harvest moon, is in Aries. Our sun is in Libra, calling us to find balance and also calling us to understand that more is coming and to look to the future, right? That's that North Node energy, right? Pay attention to your destiny. Pay attention to what's coming. There's more out here for you, right? But when you have that square between both of Jupiter, the challenge is the optimism. The challenge is, yes, the optimism, but showing up in the form of pessimism, right? The challenge is, I know I want more. I know I got what I have. I know I should be grateful for that, but I want more. You have to be mindful to not allow that Jupiter energy to be reversed on you. You have to be mindful to not become pessimistic and feel like you're not doing enough, feel like you're not achieving enough. You have to be mindful to not be looking at people that you are in relationship with and saying, I want you to do better and I want more from you, without recognizing what they do and how they're showing up, being grateful for who they are and being grateful for the good in them, right? This is how these emotions can show up and test relationships. When you are looking at your relationship and you're desiring more and you're desiring a next step, without being grateful for where you are and what you have and who they are. Don't allow yourself to become pessimistic about your relationships. And I'm talking about relationships with family, friends, lovers, etc. Don't allow yourself to become pessimistic about your relationships. Also, don't allow yourself to become pessimistic about yourself, to become pessimistic about your own goals and your own ability, right? And this is where we have to really tap into that Aries energy of courage and confidence and passion and remember who you are. Right. So that is another challenge where, again, going back to that balance, where a lot of us will have to find the balance between gratitude, being grateful for where we are and being grateful for what we have in this harvest season, while also knowing that, shout out to Kendrick Lamar, I deserve it all. Okay, I deserve it all. Right? Like literally, some folk had that song on repeat. Nigga, I deserve it all. I want it all right now. Okay. So don't become pessimistic. And I'm saying it again, specifically when it comes to the relationships in your life. Okay. So that's something to be mindful of. All right. Now, I want to make sure I touched on all of the different planetary aspects. I talked about the conjunction of Chiron and Aries. In Aries, I talked about the squaring of Jupiter in Cancer. I talked about the opposing Sun in Libra. A lot of cardinal energy going on. So again, pay attention to your cardinal placements. I talked about the fact that this is a super moon, so all of this energy is intensified. We talked about the fact that with this full moon and the energy being intensified, your intuition, that divine feminine energy, is naturally much more increased. We talked about all of that. Okay, the importance, oh, this is the last thing I want to touch on. The importance of making sure that you are reflecting on your spiritual journey during this time. A great thing that will be very helpful for you to do in Wellness Community, we already talked about this when I did the Hoodoo Heritage Month post. So y'all are already prepared and y'all already have the journal prompts, right? Because it's going to be the same journal prompts from our first of the month Hoodoo Heritage Month post. But it's important right now for everybody to really align with that, or read that sun energy, right? In order to balance the energy of this full moon, Chiron, as well as Eris in Aries, we need to really tap into that opposing side. We need to tap into our sun in Libra energy, that Ori energy. So this is the time where you really want to reflect on your spiritual journey, and something that's going to prevent you from being pessimistic and feeling like you're not doing enough is tapping into spirit and tapping into that increased intuition that's going to come from that full moon, full super moon in Aries. Okay. So reflect on your spiritual journey and really, really ask yourself, how is your spiritual journey showing up? Where are you in your spiritual journey? What work are you doing? And I'm going to tell y'all, this is a great time for ancestor communication. And to really elevate your ancestor communication, I heavily advise that you elevate, at least for this month. Make a dedication, a commitment for Hoodoo Heritage Month specifically. For this month, I'm going to be intentional about practicing ancestor veneration every single day. Every day, I'm going to commit to doing one thing to honor my ancestors, just one, right? And remember that ancestor veneration doesn't always have to be just going to the altar and putting out some water or putting out some food. It doesn't always have to be that. Ancestor veneration could be telling a story that your grandmama told you. Ancestor veneration could be saying their name. Ancestor veneration could be going to bless somebody in their honor. Ancestor veneration could be pouring libations, right? Go pour something out for them and say their names and give them gratitude. Ancestor veneration could be cooking something that they used to cook or eating something that they used to like to eat. Same thing for drinking. Ancestor veneration is so simple. It's really just about remembering them, honoring them by remembering them, by remembering their stories and their lessons and their energy, remembering that, in the words of Maya Angelou, you come as one, but you stand as 10,000, right? So just remembering to thank them every moment that you feel gratitude. So increase your ancestor communication by increasing your ancestor veneration. So that is a commitment that I urge everybody to make to themselves, right? Not to me. Make it to yourself. Increase your ancestor communication by increasing your ancestor veneration. One thing a day for the next, how many days in October? 31? 31. Halloween be October 31st. For the next 31, no, well, we on the 3rd. So what we got left? 31 minus 3 is 20. For the next 28 days. For the next 28, 31, 28 days, make the commitment. One thing a day. One thing a day to honor your ancestors. Okay. All right. Journal prompts. So let's get into it. And like I said, Wellness Community, Y'all already got these journal prompts. For everyone else, these journal prompts were inspired by the fact that this is Hoodoo Heritage Month. And again, a great time to reflect on your spiritual journey. So here's some journal prompts to help you do that. Come on, the math is mathing. Come on, the math is mathing. I'm glad y'all know. I got a little bit of pinch of a degree. But math was not my forte. I ain't gonna tell y'all how I got through calculus. I had to snatch the nigga test. He was trying to cover it up with his arm. I said, give me that motherfucking test. You ain't going, nigga. He tried to cover it with his arm. We black. Look out for a bitch. I'm trying to make it too. Here, damn. Go turn yours in and I'll turn mine in after. Shit. Okay, but I passed. I passed it. Shout out to the brother. Anyway, journal prompt. I was an applied behavior analysis major. I didn't even need all that math anyway. Why was I in calculus? I took chemical calculations. What did I need a chemical calculation for? I was an applied behavior analysis. That's because I used to just pick up minors like toilet tissue. That's why minor in chemistry, minor in African American studies, my Africana studies, minor in English. Why I had 3 minors. And you know what they don't ask on a job application after you graduate? They never ask, what was your minor? They never asked, and nobody told me that shit. When I went and declared the second minor, the counselor should have said, girl, you know what? Let me just put you on game. They never said that. I'm in there taking poetry classes. Bitch. I appreciated those, some of my favorites, but if you in college right now, drop that minor. No, I'm joking. Don't drop that minor. Don't drop that minor. It's just, the minor is for you. The minor is for you. You know? But a bitch still had to count for that 31 minus 3. Just saying. Just saying. Anyway, journal prompts. Come on, y'all. See, it be y'all. It be y'all. I said 40 minutes. We at 41. It be y'all. I told you. Journal prompts. Where are you on your spiritual journey? How have you grown mentally and spiritually since you started your journey? How do you identify and why? Now, I know that was a lot. Now, this is a cluster prompt. That was all one. I know some of y'all was like, damn, bitch, you said one. That was 4 questions. Keep up. I'm going to read it one more time. Where are you on your spiritual journey? How have you grown mentally and spiritually since you've started your journey? How do you identify? Do you identify as, let me speak for myself. I identify as a free-flowing spiritualist. Do you identify as a free-flowing spiritualist? Do you identify as a hoodoo practitioner, a root worker, conjure person, Orisha devotee? Do you identify as Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, a combination, combination fried rice? How do you identify? And why? Or do you not have any identity? Do you not connect to any label? And that is absolutely okay too. But why? Okay. The second journal prompt. What is your relationship? And this is in honor of Hoodoo Heritage Month. What is your relationship with hoodoo? How much of a role did it play or does it play in your spiritual journey? Right? Now, before I read that one again, let me just say this. We all understand that hoodoo is a closed practice. So I'm giving you consent that if you are outside of the closure, you could skip number 2. You could put NA, not applicable, not answerable. Okay. Reading it again. What is your relationship with hoodoo and how much of a role did it play in your spiritual journey? Third journal prompt. And you don't have to be a hoodoo practitioner to be able to answer this one. Okay. What roots or herbs are your favorite to work with and why? And that's because herbs and we call them roots, but herbs are a part of multiple different practices, right? So, what roots or herbs are your favorite to work with and why? And this is connecting to that earth energy, right? This leads to number 4. What is your element? How do you intentionally work with your element to elevate spiritually? And this is important because we all have a leading element. Yes, all elements are a part of all of us. We are all the air, breath. We are all the earth, flesh. We are all water, blood, etc. And also, we are all fire through the ori, through the crown, through the womb, also through the blood, right? So we all of the elements are a part of all of us, right? But what is your leading element? What element are you most drawn to? And how do you utilize that element in your work to elevate spiritually? Okay. The fifth and final journal prompt. How has your relationship with your ancestors grown since studying hoodoo? What did your ancestor what did your or it's supposed to say what does ancestor veneration look like for you? That's what it's supposed to say. What does ancestor veneration look like for you? Now let me be clear. If you are outside of the closure, you could just leave out that hoodoo part. So your question, if you are outside of the closure, could simply be, how has your relationship with your ancestors grown since you started your spiritual journey? What does ancestor veneration look like for you? And I also want to add, this is not in the question, but I want to add, what does ancestor communication look like for you? Add that to it as well. Okay. Come on now. I identify as a witch, a fairy, and a mermaid. Ooh, that made me want to do a shimmy. A witch, a fairy, and a mermaid. Okay, I like that. Come on now. Crystals and herbs. And then we closing on out, huh? Crystals and herbs. Now, with these crystals specifically, of course, y'all know with the crystals, you can meditate with them. You can add them to a mojo bag. You can put them under a pillow, a bra. If you got a little crystal on, put it in your coochie, put it in your ass. They got crystal butt plugs now, y'all. They got crystal all kind of things, okay? Do what you feel led to do with the crystal. But the intention of the crystal is to transmute the energy, huh? Transmute, to share in the energy, transfer the energy, huh? That's the intention of the crystal. Now, with these crystals, they are all in alignment with this Aries energy, but also the complementing planetary alignments. Let's get into it. Red jasper for resilience during your shadow work. Red jasper for resilience during your shadow work. Bloodstone for grounding and energy protection. Carnelian for optimism, to combat that square with Jupiter. Tiger's eye for dispelling and protection. And hematite for releasing negative energy from within. Okay, running through them again. Red jasper, bloodstone, carnelian, tiger's eye, and hematite. Okay. Herbs. Now, all of these herbs are harvest protection herbs. And I wanted to share these with y'all because, yes, this is a full moon. And during full moons, again, we spend it reflecting, revealing, and releasing. We don't really focus too much on manifestation work. That's more new moon where we set intentions and manifest, right? And let me be clear about that. A lot of European practitioners practice the opposite, and that's okay. That's their business. That's their business. I come from Africans. I come from Black people. Okay. So traditionally, with Sulanis, come on, Sulan, sexy Sulan, Black American princess, in club, get incense, okay. My Sulans, we be chilling during this time. But with this harvest energy, it's important for us to understand how to protect our harvest, right? How to make sure that your harvest is well, especially when you have a lot of high energy flowing with this full moon, this super full moon, high energy in a sense of emotions, maybe a little bit of optimism, things like that. So These herbs are centered in protecting your harvest specifically. Now, what you want to do with these herbs is I heavily advise smudging with these herbs. Heavily advise. If you want to, you could make a spirit water or a Florida water with them, like a cleansing water, a protection water, right? If you desire to do that. Moving forward, the herbs. Coffee for a road opener to clear any blockages and remove any blockages, any hate and hoes. Coffee. Cilantro or shadow benny. Shadow benny, I was telling the wellness community about this. It was because I was talking to some sisters, and it was sisters from Trinidad, a sister from not Trinidad. One sister was from Jamaica, one sister is from Guyana. My father is from Panama. Okay, and one thing about shadow benny is it is a herb that is used in the Latin Caribbean as well as Caribbean culture. It's also known as culantro. That's something I learned. A lot of people call it culantro, right? But shadow benny or cilantro, if you can't find shadow benny, both of them are used for ori protection, protecting your ori, which some people call your chi. Okay, so cilantro or culantro, also known as shadow benny, can be used for that, right? Coriander. Coriander for love and relationship protection. That Venus energy, we talked about how some of those challenges may try to come up in relationship. Your relationships are a part of your harvest. Hello. Protected with that coriander. And clove for financial protection. Clove for financial protection. Okay, especially when it comes to y'all know clove stops gossip as well. You said does coffee need to be used ground or bean? Ground or bean doesn't matter. One thing I prefer ground coffee, but either is okay, especially when you're gonna just smudge it, right? Again, I recommend smudging with these. Now with the shadow benny or the culantro or the cilantro, you could do a head wash with it. You could add it to some cool waters or to some coconut, some cool coconut water or milk, and do a head wash with it if you feel led to do that. But that's good for cleansing the crown. Again, it's for ori protection. All right. And again, the coffee could be ground. It could be, y'all, I used ancestral coffee. I used the coffee that my ancestors love, which is Rustela. Rustela. That Rustela. Okay. That's what I like to use, huh? So you can use your own ancestral coffee. What coffee did your ancestors prefer? Did they love? Okay. So it doesn't have to be a specific brand. You can use chicory. Chicory is fine as well. It doesn't have to be a specific brand. You use your when it comes to coffee and really any herbs, use what you know that your ancestors appreciated. Come on now, Blue Mountain. I know some folks like Folgers. My one of my elders on my mother's side, my grandmother on my mother's side, she used to like Sanka. Y'all remember the Sanka coffee? She used to like that. So it just depends, right? Like it depends on what your ancestors love, but that's what you'll use. Running through them again: the coffee, cilantro or shadow benny slash culantro, coriander, cinnamon, as well as I talked about cinnamon. Yes, prosperity, power, and protection. I don't think I said that one. And clove. Coffee, cilantro, shadow benny, coriander, cinnamon, and clove. Okay, family. Wellness community, y'all know these notes. I got to do that little edit for one of those journal prompts, but I'll post these notes in the chat immediately after. Everybody else, keep in mind that this full moon peaks on the 6th, but the shadow period lasts until the 9th. So you have all of that time to really do that shadow work, reflect, reveal, release anything that is leading you to be pessimistic, any triggers to these emotions that are not aligned with your wellness. Release those triggers by doing that shadow work. Elevate your emotional intelligence. Remain centered in gratitude and centered in optimism. Do not allow feelings of boredom. Do not allow these emotions and this feeling of I need more and I want it all. Do not allow those feelings to stop you from appreciating the harvest that you have. I'm back again, ho. I'm back again. I'm back again. They can't stop me. I'm back again. No, that's my fault, y'all. My laptop died. My laptop died. Okay. That was my fault. That was on me. Huh? That was on me. My apologies. My granddad used to say, my apologize. He used to say, my apologize. Used to be like, granddaddy is apologize. But shout out to having a grandfather who had no problem apologizing to you when he was wrong. He used to say, apologize. He'd look at you with the side eye. No, apologize. Okay. So let me turn to the apologize, y'all. Because I thought I wasn't going to be before y'all long. And I saw when I started, the laptop was at 55%. I said, I'm going to be on here for less than 40 minutes. It's a little more than 1% per minute. I won't be before you long. We 56 minutes in. That laptop said it. But I said what I said, and I was closing out anyway, huh? I was closing anyway. But this is a lesson in following your spirit, huh? A lesson in following your spirit. Because let me tell you, when I got the laptop and I did my setup, I said, I had picked the charger up. When I set up the stream to go live in 30 minutes, I said, I don't need the charger. Let me put the charger back. I put the charger back on the shelf, huh? That's why you got to follow your spirit. Got to follow that spirit, that Aries, okay? This is an example of what it looks like, huh? Because I said I wasn't going to be before you long, but now we 56 minutes in. Because we done had 2 cutoffs, huh? And then the chat is chatting. I said I was going to blame y'all. I'm still blaming y'all. Like I was saying, the full moon peaks October 6th. The shadow period ends on the 9th. Enjoy. I said what I said. Wellness community, I'll see y'all tomorrow for our book club meeting. See you tomorrow. Happy Hoodoo Heritage Month. Happy harvest season. Halloween coming up. It's spooky season. Him is going to come out on streaming soon. Happy hymn season. Shout out to Jordan Peele. Huh? God bless. For those who believe in God. I know some of y'all don't even believe no more. Child, let's talk about that. I respect everybody's beliefs. Shout out to the atheists and agnostics. Huh? I be listening to y'all. Huh? Shout out to the Solanis. I don't even know if y'all claim me. My father is from Panama, but he's Black. My mother is Geechee. She's Black American, generational. Huh? Generational. I don't even know if I count, but that's okay. If I don't, I'm all right with it. The website said I count, but folks done said that it don't. But shout out to Sulanis. Happy Sulani. Happy Sulan. I put my application in. Let's see if it gets accepted. I bring a lot to the community. I'm a doula, a root worker, a conjure worker. I don't know what else. I got healing hands, a healing heart, power of the tongue. I do activist work, real activist work in politics. I'm a policy writer, actually, but I don't like to talk about that publicly because they come for you. I do things. I got real work in the streets. I got references. Shout out to my Sulanis. All right, y'all. Happy full moon. I love y'all dearly. Happy Hoodoo Heritage Month. Love y'all. Wellness community. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.